welcome back to the 6th episode of Two Guys, One Field. Somehow we've made it this far, but we're still trucking, or at least trying to.
Alrighty, so today's topic is going to be, are farmers actually rich? Because we know everybody normally sees it that way. I've never talked to a friend or, anybody close or anyone that I've ever talked to who's never told me that farmers are poor. I always get that, you're rich and it's hard to go broke if you're a farmer, which we all know isn't true. That's what we're trying to show.
And nowadays, especially with the prices of land and everything, it's awful hard to keep going, even though you're rich. It's all about assets.
Yeah, that's what, you might look wealthy, but ultimately it might come down to that your farm has no cash flow at all. And are you truly wealthy? And that brings us into our first point of why do the people think farmers are wealthy? They see that equipment sitting outside. They see your nice combine and everything that you take care of and maintain and instantly assume you're rich.
See the nice shop, see the house is all cleaned up.
The 100 acres that it sits on. It looks like money.
But
is it?
It's all ways to make money.
Or it might be financed.
Yeah.
And it might have no net value at all. But it sits there and it looks pretty and people think you got money.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Assets don't always equal cash. Especially when there's money borrowed against them.
Yeah, that's for dang sure. But in farming, that's all. If people want to say that farmers are rich, it's all asset. It's all cash flowed out. You get so much in at one part of the year, and then you get almost all of it just taken away due to payments, rent, supplies to plant the next season. There's a lot of cash flow that comes in, especially with maintenance costs and everything like that as well.
Yeah, that brings us into the next topic is land ownership versus your actual cash flow. If you own 500 acres at $15,000 an acre nowadays, which is kind of low, that's $7.5 million just in land value. But, the crop on that ground isn't your numbers aren't that pretty when it comes to the actual, especially if you have a bad year. The numbers aren't super pretty at all compared to that $7.5 million you got sitting there if it's paid off.
Yeah. And it sounds like a lot, but most of the farmers are just bringing it in. If they're buying it for the next generation to make it easier to hopefully give them a standing chance.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's getting into those bad times where you actually have to try and sell it just to keep going.
You got, when you're operating on that land, you got fuel bills, you got fertilizer, you got your help if you need help. If you're a bigger operation, you got your equipment, repairs. Even if you're just renting ground, you got to make that cash rent payment, especially if it's all up front or if it's the first half and a second half, or maybe you're lucky and it's all a second half cash rent.
Which, everybody talks about the $6 diesel for $4 corn, $3 corn, $5, whatever corn is around your area. But you're not spending a gallon of fuel for one singular corn crop. It's not. One ear is not going to cost you a gallon of fuel. And I don't think, or one bushel, I should say, not an ear. Not many people can wrap their head around that.
Yeah. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is the equipment trap. Everybody's got them nice Chace 9240s sitting outside with their 540 quad tracks.
Be careful. He's been around the atrazine. That's why he likes Chace.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
You could have a $500,000 combine nowadays pretty easy. Or you could have your new AF10 sitting outside for $1.3 million if you're able to swing it.
I wish getting into 10, 11 series combines. I've heard a lot about the 10 series combines being not all that, saying you might as well go up to the 11 series because the only difference there is really horsepower.
Yeah, but when you're at 800 some odd horse, can you even tell a difference?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole problem with the
that's an astronomical astronomical amount of horsepower compared to, think about somebody farming with an old M back in the day, chugging advertised 43, probably putting about 30 to the ground. You know?
It's a crazy number difference,
big
but that was the
difference.
whole. Oh, excuse me. That was the whole difference between the X9000 and the 1100. The 1000 was crap because it didn't have enough horse to really keep everything going. That's why everybody was telling, because I was asking around about it, and they were telling you just go to the 1100. It wasn't worth the money for the 1000. You throw so much out the back because you have so little horse. Can't thresh it fast enough.
Mm-hmm. And this equipment, these farms aren't paying cash for this equipment. It's financed equipment, or you're rolling old equipment into new equipment, and you're also going to have good years versus bad years. Farm income's all over the place, and could have a bad year. You don't know what could happen. You could be liquidating some stuff just to be able to keep going.
I mean, that happens to a lot of people, especially around here.
It seems like for every 10 years you have that are bad, you might have 2 that are good that hopefully offset it enough that you can keep farming.
And I mean, for some of the farmers around here, we had it to where it was go time in early April is whenever we started. And if you didn't get your crops in,
It's been wet.
It's been really wet.
The entire month of May so far. The only thing that you've seen done is there's been about 2 days where stuff's been spotted in, and a couple days that you've been able to side dress without just rutting your fields out to nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, we got all our side dress in, and we like to put it in early just so it's there. Now, if you're putting side dress on when we are, and it was V2, V3, there's not as much of a nutrient value, I say, because you need V5 is the best point in time when the corn crop actually really needs that extra little bit of nitrogen. But if you put it on early, you have less risk of getting rained out, and you have more time period. So we just throw a little bit extra on compared to what we would. And then also in V5, you run over the corn's not coming back.
Yeah, so what actually works well when you're trying to build your farm wealth and everything is, honestly, what they say is the best day to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the second best day to plant a tree is today. And that comes into the same thing works with farming is having old paid off ground that's been around for a while. It's just the input cost on it's so much lower.
Even if you don't have, if it's paid off, and even if you're not pushing out, it's not your best field or something like that, you still make more money on that field just because you don't have the rent cost.
Yeah,
you don't have the price of any of that. Like it's a no-brainer, but you have to get to that point.
And something else that works well obviously is renting ground, because you don't have that mortgage payment. You've got just your cash rents, and if it's a second half cash rent, you can pay for it completely with the crop, once you get it out of the field. And that's another way to do it. And another thing a lot of farmers do is side businesses, or maybe farming is their side business. It's what they like to do for fun.
Which I have a couple customers that is their thought. They're hobby farmers. That is their secondary income.
Like we mentioned earlier, land appreciation's also, especially in the last 20 years, but farmers have gained a lot of their net worth from. It's just appreciation of the ground. Having it.
Land is always going to be an appreciating asset. That's just how it is. That's just how the market's always ran.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a car where you use it so much and just keeps depreciating in value.
Dude, nowadays farm equipment won't even depreciate because no one can afford to buy new stuff.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It's crazy. And that kind of leads us into our next point of the farmer assumes all of the risk whenever it comes to growing the crop, whether it comes from renting the ground. Whoever they rent that ground from, they get their cash rent checks. They put that in the ground. They're farming it. They don't know if it's going to rain. They don't know if it's going to rain too much. They don't know what their crop price is going to be or what their yield's going to be, when they go to sell it. They have very little control outside of putting it in the ground at the right time and hoping it grows.
Which, I mean, replant is next to nothing or free for most people. And I mean, if you can get it in the ground and it comes up, the yield difference is crazy, especially on soybeans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's been so many new studies that show the earlier the bean, the better, as long as it doesn't get frosted off.
And one bad year can hurt, you know.
Oh, yeah.
One bad year of farming it could set you back for a long time. Even if you lose 10 bushel to the acre on your soybeans and 20 in your corn, that hurts, especially when profit margins are tight, you know, nowadays.
I mean, that just amplifies over. That could be $100,000. Just bam, gone.
Over all your acreage, yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of brings us to our closing statement. Are farmers rich? And the honest answer is there's a lot of farmers that do have assets that are worth money. But at the end of the day, the cash flow is just not there. You know, unless all their ground's paid for, they've got a, you know, farming's their side hustle, and they've got a business that they're feeding it with.
I mean, different people have different thoughts of rich.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if your idea of rich is a bunch of assets, yeah, we're rich. But we're also the poorest millionaires you'd ever meet. We used to be able to almost get food stamps through school because Dad used to he worked corporate and he put so much money back into the farm that he could get food stamps. I mean, we didn't, but
so
we
that's
could. That just goes to show poorest millionaires.
Yeah, farming's a business. There's big numbers, big expenses, and thin margins nowadays, and it just comes down to what you think is rich, you know. So we'd like to hear from you guys. You know, what would you think's rich? Because to me, when I think about a farmer, I think about the old saying, "A farmer's not rich till he's dead." So
same way I think about it.
It's pretty much how it is nowadays. You know, your grandpa dies and, you know, everything gets sold off because people just want that land money because of how high land is nowadays.
A lot of people who just come back from, say, college or something, and all they see is dollar signs. They don't see the blood, sweat, and tears.
Yep. Alrighty, well, thank you guys. This was the 6th episode of the Two Guys One Field podcast. We'd like to know your thoughts, your comments, and what you'd like to see us talk about next. Have a good one.